we go. So why don't we start by just introduce yourself and what industry you work in, and specifically this deep dive we're doing, what industry was that in?
Yeah, so my name's Dustin Winchell, founder of BrandBoost AI. So we help businesses, particularly service-based businesses, automate marketing, sales, operation processes. And so, we use CloseBot particularly for the sales automation side of things. So primarily for lead engagement, nurturing, appointment booking, follow-up, stuff like that.
Cool. How many sub accounts do you work with? How many different businesses?
Yeah, so right now we have about 24, 20 to 30 accounts right now.
Sweet. And how many
Yeah, and
people do
some
you
of
have on
those.
your team?
Yeah, so right now I have two. So I built the agency in the past where I had 30 plus full-time staff, and really like at the end of 2022 or so when ChatGPT really got like released to the public, started going really deep into AI at that point, and within 3 months cut that marketing agency team in half. We had a
Wow.
lot of people doing strategy, writing, that kind of stuff, and so AI just really streamlined, some of the processes that we were having from a marketing standpoint, from marketing strategy, target audience stuff, right? All that kind of stuff. And so really ever since then, I've been slowly like saying no to more marketing agency clients and saying yes to more AI clients. And really through that transition, I started implementing AI in my business, right? Starting with more of those marketing related things. And then I stumbled across, different AI tools, did a lot of research, stumbled across, CloseBot. There was just a lot of people really raving about it. So I was like, all right, I'll try it out. And so I did, and I started using it for my business. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then one of my marketing agency clients actually saw what we were doing in my business, and he owns a chiropractic franchise. And he was like, could this work for my business? And I was like, probably so. And so that's how I got my first client, actually. It's about 9 months ago now, and started with his primary chiropractic location. One thing led to the next. About 3 to 4 weeks later, they added their second location. 2, 3 weeks later, the next one, and then the next one, and now we have all 7 or 8 of his franchises. So that's pretty cool. And then
Dang.
yeah, and so that's kind of the industry that I've focused on, really getting dialed in, is chiropractic. Just from that relationship, one thing led to the next, and like over half of our clients are chiropractic offices right now. And so, some other clients we have are like some coaching, consulting clients. That was the primary target audience I served in my marketing agency, were personal brands, coaches, consultants, that audience. So we have a couple of those. We have real estate investors. We have, funny enough, one of the very first clients we got was a senior living facility. And so that was really interesting.
Interesting.
That was like, yeah, that was one of the industries that I saw AI probably getting to last, just because of how that industry, is just kind of fragile from like a, communication situation standpoint. But they went like all in. So they were my first client too, where we implemented AI across different departments of their business. So we had one, CloseBot for their residents. We had one for staffing. We had one for investors, so qualifying investors,
Sure.
and then we had another one for strategic partners. So yeah, that's kind of an overview. I'm trying to think if there's any more. I mean, I've built different ones for like dental and um, yeah, real estate investors, agents, that kind of stuff. But that's kind of a high level, the different kind of clients that we've worked with.
Okay, cool. So you started big staff, started to niche down more into focusing on AI. That allowed you to scale down your team. You've been providing good results for your clients. They saw it working in your business, and then they wanted it in their business. It's just kind of happening naturally. And now you have your vision, your sights set on where you are right now. Cool. Well, the reason I wanted to connect with you is because I caught wind of a scenario where AI maybe worked too well and overwhelmed a business. Could we dive into some of the numbers on that? First of all, what type of industry was that business in?
Yeah, so that was a chiropractic client. And I had been nurturing this client for, maybe a month or two. and a little resistant, but there's a lot to unpack in this just one scenario. But long story short, we can dive as deep as you want into it. I'll kind of share the short story part of it, and then you can uncover more if
Yeah.
you want. But essentially, this guy was doing all the lead management on his own, for his practice, and I wasn't fully aware of that until it got overwhelming, and then it was like, so there's some breakthroughs that I didn't share in the post that you saw. That was some learning lessons on my end when it comes to reading the room and knowing how to adjust the throttle of AI based on their capacity. And so, yeah, essentially, we did a database reactivation campaign with
How many
AI.
contacts?
Yeah, so he had 6,000 or so contacts. And then we were, uh, part of the problem too is like he wasn't doing lead management very well. And so there was leads that we were sending messages to that were past clients, current clients, all that kind of stuff. And so there was some friction around that. But really, 90% of the leads that we sent to were old leads, that just hadn't been touched, whether it was in a month or several years. He's had his practice and never once ran a database reactivation campaign. And so, of course, like I saw, this massive opportunity, to just crush it for his business. And sure enough, we start dripping. I think it was like 50 or 100 messages every hour for like 8 hours a day. And so the plan was like, okay, in 2 weeks, it's going to run through, all these leads. Well, it was that mixed with, some automation, some automated follow up that I have custom built for chiropractors. And that compounded each day and the
Yeah,
next. And so it went from, the first day we booked over 10 appointments in the first 24 hours. By the
that's
end of the
crazy.
first, yeah, by the end of the first week, we were at like 40 or something like that. And then by the end of 2 weeks, we're at 100 booked appointments, and he was overwhelmed and he couldn't handle it. And so he was basically like, hey, this is working great, but like my process is not. And so I need to pause this, go back to the drawing board, hire some people to help me with, the his side of the business. And so, yeah, it was the first time that I'd ever lost a client in 9 months since I launched AI and helping people, particularly with,
Wow.
the appointment setting side of things. And it was funny because it was like, because it was working too well, but like, I will share a learning lesson, which is we slammed on the gas when we should have just slowly eased on it and then ramped up. So, that was a learning lesson for me is we could always ramp up, but ramping down a database reactivation campaign is very challenging. And so that was a learning lesson for me was, probably should have started with like 25% of the volume that we were sending out on a daily basis, and been a little bit more aware of like his unique situation as far as his inefficiencies in his business that would lead to a bottleneck.
Sure. That's a really good takeaway. So you're saying if someone wants to do a reactivation and they're thinking about just going full bore, maybe start with 10 or 25% of the volume they plan on doing, do that for maybe a day, and then wait and see what the compounding side effects are. And
Yeah,
then check in
exactly.
with the business owner and say, like, okay, if we scale this by 4x, can you handle that? Yes or no?
Correct. Yeah. Tough
That's
lesson to learn,
massive.
but yeah, yeah. Really important lesson.
Yeah, because I mean, the reason we're all using AI is because we know it relieves the the scheduling bottleneck, but there are other bottlenecks, and this will find them quickly in your case.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So that previous client is still not a client of yours. They're still figuring their stuff out.
Correct. Yeah.
Did they use you for other services and just not this add-on or not at all?
No, that was the only service that really was applicable because with the chiropractic office, there's only so much AI things that you can do, and so I definitely, one of the things that I realized in my journey of entrepreneurship and building my marketing agency is I'm really great at like marketing strategy, but I also found I'm really great at automation. in creating automation. So when AI came into the picture, it just like amplified that for me, and it was like this light bulb moment. I also just have this perspective of, I'm about to turn 30 in a couple months from now. And, I wasn't old enough to take advantage of like the internet coming out in the 90s. I was, in high school whenever like social media came out, and it was like nowhere near as used as it is now, or as, people didn't realize the value of it at that time. And then, there's like crypto and real estate, like 2008 types of things that I was not really old enough to take advantage of, and also just ignorant to at the same time, right? I might have been old enough, but maybe ignorant to different aspects of those opportunities. And so when AI came out, it was like, this is the opportunity. And so I was, just trying to figure out how can I leverage everything that I learned and developed as skills in that marketing agency into AI. And so that's what, brought me into adding this. But to get back to that question that you asked around if that was the only service that they wanted to work with me for. And something that I found is like a lot of people want AI, but they don't actually realize everything else that goes into the back end of setting it up. It's not just click, 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 turn it on, and then it's like running smoothly, right? It can, but there's, nuances that can impact the efficiency, quality, all these different aspects of how it performs. And so, for him and pretty much every single one of my clients, they're not great at automations, and they're not great at
Right.
building, these things out. And so I would be installing these entire snapshots and systems into their business. And like overnight, they're like, wow, this is crazy that it can do this and that and this and that. And it actually was another breakthrough for me, where it's like, I'm not just selling AI, like I really am selling an entire proven system that I'm constantly refining through every single client that I work with. And so that was a good breakthrough for me of, there's a lot of people out there just trying to price cut like other people and whatnot. And, even with CloseBot, people that might just go to the website and see like creating the free account or whatever, and them not being experienced with creating and managing tech and automations and stuff like that, they'll get results from it, but they're not going to be as good as someone that has built it and does it every day as their business.
I 100% agree. And there's a trend right now in influencers talking about how marketing agencies may be in trouble because AI is getting good enough that it'll replace the marketing agency with a one-click setup solution for business owners. And I just don't see that as the case. I am a developer in the weeds. You are a marketing agency. You're in the weeds, and you see how complex an AI system would have to be to handle that. And I just don't think we'll ever get there, honestly. There's so much nuance to it that's unspoken that it wouldn't be able to account for. So there'll always be a place for you, always be a place for me to have these solutions and have a person in a seat interviewing the business owner, asking the right questions, and then putting those automations in place.
Yeah, and I think, a good distinguisher is people might be, looking for the result of more appointments, right? That's like what you're selling. But I think a lot of people that are selling AI appointment setter systems is really they're missing the emphasis on this is entire system. Like it's not just one little aspect that's making this all happen. There's a lot of underlying things in the background that you don't understand, whether it's, close bots related, you know frameworks, prompts, and things that you've developed on the back end that make things seem like magic because it is, right? And then the actual practical automations that are built, around the other aspects of making it truly perform at the highest level.
Yeah. Tagging contacts along the way, like just sorting so you can remarket to them with other tools later. Uh, so many things that they don't get that you have to
Yeah.
handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay. If you had one piece of advice for someone starting CloseBot today, what would that be?
That's a good question. I would actually say it depends. I'm very much a it depends kind of person. It's like, what's the situation? What kind of person is this? I would say if it's someone that is just like a owner operator of their own business, that's a different answer than if it's a marketing agency or someone that's looking to sell this to other people. I think it's a very different approach, depending on who that avatar is. So, I mean, I could talk
Let's say
about
marketing
all.
agency.
Yeah, so marketing agency, I would say definitely niching down. Although I have, half a dozen different niches I'm working with, over half of my clients are in the chiropractic space, and that was my first client. And that system is by far, the most dialed in out of any of the AI systems that I built. And so not only does it perform better and quicker, but I'm able to maximize, profit, better client results and testimonials that I get feedback from, quicker wins, right? Within 24 hours, 10 booked appointments. That doesn't happen if you don't focus, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of marketing agencies make the mistake of, just saying yes to anyone. And that's easy to say whenever you have gotten some success in the beginning. I think that you should take the opportunities that come your way. But I would say that that would be the biggest takeaway for anyone that's looking to sell this to other people is like really pick a niche and just go deep into that niche because of all the things that I just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's I'll share a little bit about some of the results that I've seen. So one thing that I'm really big on is, and this is a tip for anyone out there that is using CloseBot, again, whether it's for their agency or their own business, is to create smart lists based on, the flow, right? So my flow is I have AI opportunities, right? That's the first metric that I'm looking at is how many of the contacts in someone's, CRM are actual AI opportunities. And how you determine that is, which leads are being communicated with and which ones are not. And what I mean by that is some businesses, will auto add, contacts, maybe that booked, right? They called them on the phone and they're adding them manually, right? And like, I wouldn't consider that an AI opportunity. What I consider an AI opportunity is someone that opts in, right? Whether it's on a website, Google ad, Facebook ad, whatever it may be, is a new lead that comes in that the business owner wants the AI to engage with, right? And sometimes that's only 50, sometimes it's 100% of their new contacts that get added. So that's the first metric that I track. And that's typically tracked through tags. So all my automations segment based on, what service and then also what channel, contacts are coming in from. And so I very quickly just create a smart list. Hey, any contacts that have a social ad, Google ad, or website lead tag, right? And so that gives me my AI opportunities. Well, from there, I then add the AI responded tag, right? So now I know how many of those AI opportunities engaged with the ad, and that gives me the engagement percentage of how many new leads are coming in. That's an opportunity. Engage with the AI,
And what
right? And
kind
I can
of
share.
rate are you
Yeah,
seeing?
yeah. So for that, it ranges. I have a spreadsheet that kind of breaks down all of that, and I've been developing some like automated tracking of things more recently. But on average, anywhere from, and what's really important to mention here is the quality of the leads because, I've had some that are like at
Right.
30%, but I will say on average, it's more around the 45 to 55% range. But I have some clients where it's like 70% of their leads engage with the AI, right? So lead quality is extremely important. Um, and so, yeah, that's the first metric that I really track is opportunities and then engage leads with AI. And then from there, one other thing that I noticed is client feedback might be, hey, the AI is not booking all these appointments. And part of that reason might be because the office is jumping in before it gets to that objective, right? But one thing that I've noticed And one thing that I make sure to report on, because some clients can get jaded with, oh, it's not working, it's not doing what I thought it would do, blah blah blah. But like when I pull a report and I show the difference between, appointments that were booked from maybe a self book versus booked through either directly with AI booking it, or at the minimum they engaged with AI. They at least responded to a message. The AI was able to send a message back. The percentage of the leads that at least engage are always higher than the ones that self book from a confirmation standpoint, right? So, how chiropractors typically work is they do an appointment request and then their team calls to confirm those appointments.
Yep.
And so, we get, they might have more appointment requests because someone's going to a website, self booking on a calendar or whatever, but the appointment confirmations 90% of the time are higher from AI engaged leads at the minimum. And then the show up rate is higher and the close rate is higher. So that's what I use as my metrics moving forward, right? So AI opportunities, engaged opportunities, and then I track engaged appointment request versus non-engaged appointment request, and then appointment confirms that are engaged with AI versus the ones that did not engage with AI, show up, and then the close rate. And so that's how I really track everything from a percentage standpoint, and to show the comparison between, hey, the close rate of, AI engaged leads is 50% higher than non-AI engaged leads, right? Or the confirmation is 30% higher with engaged leads versus non-AI, right? So those are some different things that I use to track, and really prove the results that the AI is getting with clients.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think you have a better engagement with those that have previously interacted with the AI?
I think the simplest thing is they're an engaged lead, right? So, every day we're on Facebook and see different ads. You might opt in the moment because, I mean, you never know whether your back is, for a chiropractor, someone's back is hurting in that moment. Next day it's not hurting, or in 2 hours it's not hurting, right? Or, whatever the case may be, they might be booking just because it was a cheap deal, or maybe the ad didn't have the price and then they opted in and it shared the price, right? There's all these nuances around the situation. But, I would say the simplest answer is they are more engaged and they are more nurtured than if not, you know? And so with us, one thing that I'll say too is like I'm not managing ads for clients, right? I'm not running their ads. I'm not doing any of that. So my target audience is marketing agencies and partnering with them, right? That maybe haven't implemented AI or don't want to figure it out or whatever, franchise locations. And then from there would be like the owner operator kind of client, right? For obvious reasons,
Okay.
scalability, all of that. And so, one thing, I wanted to mention that is like I don't run and manage the ads, and so every marketing agency does things differently. The old way before I have this, I guess, methodology or perspective on, the easiest way to get more booked appointments were to let people self book. They opt in, redirect to a calendar page, and boom. While with AI, that's completely changed for me where I'm like, let's ditch the calendar. Let's, they opt
Really?
in and then they just get a text message and then it goes from there. And
And
then
you
that way,
found that because they have a little bit of engagement with an entity, they're more likely to show up for that appointment, more likely to be engaged in the confirming the appointment stage.
correct. Yeah. And so that's a big focal point that I have with all of my clients is how can we get them engaged? So for chiropractors, I'll just, give a tip if anyone's out there, trying to target any kind of doctor type of business is or health, I guess, is to ask what the reason is, right? And I guess that's a standard thing people might ask in any business is like, why are you reaching out or what's your issue or whatever. But that tends to get the highest engagement rate for us is just asking them, hey, congrats, we saw that you opted in to get our special offer. What's the reason why, you're looking for care, right? Or you're looking for our help or whatever the case may be. And that's what's getting us about a 40 to 60% engagement rate, depending on the location. And yeah, then we continue the conversation from there.
And then they're anchoring their issue too. Just like
Exactly.
sales strategy. If they come in, they're like, well, my wife's mad that I can't walk well. It's affecting our hikes. Like they've said that, they've put that out into the world. So now they know deciding not to continue that conversation is them letting their wife down or letting themselves down or their kids.
Exactly. And so, just again, getting them engaged. I think most marketing agencies that have not implemented AI particularly are still going this old, you know, rather outdated route of self book, templated automated reminders that is super, you know, impersonal, like not personal, and
Yeah.
doesn't make you feel like you have a connection or that they even care about you. And so I think AI fosters that, and I think a lot of people have a misconception that, people don't like AI and stuff like that. And, one thing I will say with that is like, if you're using CloseBot, don't have your response time be instantly, like one thing for us is like, we try to stay between 30 to 60 seconds, where it feels more like someone took the time to respond, and there's a nuance too around if they double message, right? You're not getting that, back and forth with the AI where it's not waiting for that. And so the 30 to 60 second range seems to be a good spot for us from like a delay message response standpoint.
Okay. And you're doing, these are all SMS, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're opting in SMS engagement. What brings you in today? Like, wow, what's the reason that drives engagement, conversational booking, and then chiropractor calling to confirm the booking. That's the process, right?
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Um,
yeah, those are some different things that I've realized and learned. Some different numbers that I have. Like I just pulled up, one of our chiropractic offices first 90-day results. So lead engagement. So AI engaged 56% of all AI opportunities. AI engaged 75% of all appointment requested. AI engaged 71% of all shows. And then AI engaged 82% of all closed deals.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
So
yeah.
so there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
It engaged 56%, meaning there are some that came in, were not engaged by AI for whatever reason. Those were much less likely to convert to a closing.
Correct.
And that I think that's the
25%.
biggest thing. So the
Yep.
ones that engage with AI close more often. Awesome.
Yeah. So like some more numbers that I crunched here from an appointment setting standpoint. So 72% of AI engaged leads requested an appointment. 81% of AI engaged appointments showed, or they're still pending in the pipeline. And then 53% of all engaged showed appointments closed. And then, from an AI versus non-AI engaged performance standpoint, AI engaged leads were 2.4 times more likely to close, and AI engaged leads were 1.8 times more likely to show up for their appointment.
And the non AI engage, is that just templated response? Is that no response?
Yeah, whether it's they didn't engage with any of the follow-up messages, right? Or they didn't self-book, right? Those would be the non-engaged leads. Is either they never responded, they self-booked, or they didn't self-book, right? So either just not engaged whatsoever, or they self-booked and then the AI doesn't engage with, self-booked.
So those self booking ones are not nearly as good of leads.
That's what the numbers show. And I
It's
think
interesting.
again, I think it's that connection that people are getting with the text messages, with the AI going back and forth. I think people feel more valued and cared about, which leads them to kind of feeling this sense of responsibility to show up to their appointment, you know?
Yeah, that's huge. And do people know it's an AI? Or do you tell them, do you not?
Yeah, so I typically recommend to not lead with that. Some people are like, that's a common question that I get mostly on sales calls where I don't recommend to do that. If you want to do that, it's your choice at the end of the day. But my results show without doing that for any clients that, that's why you're talking to me, right? Like, because we get results with what we're doing. And so we don't
Yeah.
mention that. I will say we've had some conversations where they're like, I know I'm talking to a bot or, whatever the case may be. Those honestly are like less than 1% of conversations. And then, you know, I have some conversations that I've saved links to where people are communicating with AI at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night. And one particular contact literally thanked. They were like, thank you for being available. They didn't say thank you, AI. They just said, I can't believe someone's available at 10 p.m. on a Saturday to book my appointment. Thank you so much. You know, and I showed the practice that like the next day, and they were just like mind blown, and so I use that a lot on sales calls. And something else I'll say as a tip and thing that I don't shy away from is showing conversations where the AI actually messed up in some way, but it still resulted in a success. And I
Sure.
think a lot of people get stuck on that. And that's one of the common support request things that I'll get in my business is like, hey, the AI is responding this way and we don't like it, or the person asked this question and it didn't respond the right way or whatever. But when you pull back and you zoom out from like that particular scenario, at the end of the day, like the AI engaged leads convert better, and I have some conversations where I've saved where the AI did mess up in some way or another, but the person still booked an appointment, showed up and closed, and so I show those. I show, hey, let me show you where it messed up and it still ended up working. So that overcomes the objection of, well, what if it messes up? And what if it's like, it will, like, it's not 100% always going to work.
Yeah.
And let me show you that, like, this is reality. And so I don't shy away from that. I think a lot of people make the mistake of trying to act like everything is perfect and great 100% of the time, and there's sometimes where, for example, in CloseBot on the back end, it'll show the message was sent. And then you look in like the CRM and it's not there, and a client will say, hey, like this person asked for an appointment time and the AI didn't respond. Well, I go to the CloseBot on the back end and sure enough, it did. But then there's that gap, with it not going to go high level. And that's, something that we could talk about, more from a feedback. Maybe you have an answer to that. My answer has been go high level. API servers go down, there's outages at times. And so that's out of our control, which that answer works because it's true. It is out of my control. But that is, a nuance where it's like, AI was doing its job, but there was still some technological errors that happened. And again, that's another example I show to people is like, hey, AI was doing its job, but somehow tech messed up. But look, the person still ended up booking, closing, and blah, blah, blah. So
Yeah.
do you care more about that, or do you care about it not sending a message every single time exactly how you want it to be?
Well, let's go into that a little bit then. Our V2 is coming. Are you in the V2 early access program?
Nope, I'm a peasant in V1 still.
The people in that early access program are doing the Lord's work. They can't use it in production. So they are literally just working for us for free. It's amazing. It's
Nice.
amazing to have them and have them giving feedback. So it's not like you're missing out on a production tool,
Sure.
but kind of where we're building and where we are with V1. So feedback on features, feedback on how the business is run. Yeah, let me have it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, something that I've been really working on is the reporting side of things, and that's been something that has been primarily manual, at least from like logging in, looking at the smart list, pulling data, that kind of stuff that way. And one thing that I built that, I'd really like to see, because I know you guys are tracking some numbers because of the dashboards that you guys populate on the different accounts, is having that data be available to be pulled out. So for example, what I have is in different automations, like the response one, for example, I have another webhook that sends that trigger to make, which then sends that information to a spreadsheet so I can track every time an AI response is sent, and then I have another workflow for appointments being booked, not just ones that AI books, but like any new appointments. And so, I have another automation set up for when a new appointment comes in, send that information, and then same for like closed leads, all that kind of stuff. And then I aggregate all of that in different ways, which I'm happy to share my screen. There's definitely like some private information on there, so I wouldn't want that to be shared with anyone else, or at least, certain parts of it. But I've created this really cool AI tracker tool that aggregates actions that are happening in the CRM, sends it to a spreadsheet, and then I have different functions and things that are aggregating all of that data to calculate different things. So, for example, the main things that I track is, again, new AI opportunities,
Yep.
AI engaged leads, and then appointments booked, and then closed deals. Those are really the four things that I track outside of, inside of the CRM. And so, some things that I track is how many times the AI has responded to each lead. That's one thing that I calculate. I also calculate the average time sent between each of the messages that it gets sent. I average like from the moment a contact is created, the time between they're created and the first AI message that's sent, which is really the first time when the lead responds, for the first time. And then I do the same thing from date created to when the appointment was booked, from when the first AI message was sent to when the appointment was booked, from when the date was created to when they closed, and then from when the first AI message was sent to when that person closed. And on the close part, that's uncontrollable for me as far as the timing of it. I just like to track
Yeah.
it because they're manually dragging people over. Everything else I can track pretty much automated. But then, I aggregate all of that data in a way where, I track the different numbers I mentioned earlier, but then I also have a function that's calculating the average responses for all leads, the average responses until an appointment is booked, the average responses that people send but don't end up booking an appointment, average response time between each message, average response time between booked contacts, and then some different numbers too around some of the other things that I mentioned. And so I aggregate all of that information, and it's really cool to look at some of that data. And that is something, as far as a feedback standpoint, to be able to automate more of that process for CloseBot users in this scenario is, super valuable. And so that's something that I've spent, literally, I can't even tell you, but like tens of hours on building that entire system. And the biggest flaw I would say with the system is if you don't implement it on day one of you adding a new client, the backlog of things that happen, right? So for example, I'll have a piece of data that comes in that says a new person closed, but they were in the system before, before they were captured in here, before the AI message was sent and stuff like that. And so something that I compare is, again, the AI engaged versus non AI engaged. So right now it's showing that 1,035% of closed deals came from non AI engaged. Well, I know that that is absolute false. I just have to go in there and
Yeah.
manually add those rows and like go back to that contact. And that is like a nightmare of time doing that. But yeah, those are just like some
Reporting
different ideas around
is
that.
very important. Our dev team is actually currently working with our UI UX team on what that dashboard is going to look like. You will have your dashboard at the agency level, and the people you support will have their business dashboard as well. The goal of your dashboard will be to tell you the full story. The goal of the business dashboard will be to show them the wins that you are
Right.
accomplishing for them. So they'll be slightly different. The one we have for the business is designed to reduce churn. We have to
Right.
show them it's working.
Right. Yeah. So like that's one thing. I don't know if this is part of it, but like average responses per lead, like that is a great metric, to
Yep.
have. And not just that, but it's like for the ones that book too, you know? So like for me, average responses for all contacts is 2.9 right now, and average responses for until an appointment gets booked is 4.4.
Yep.
So,
That sounds right. About 50% more messages exchanged back and forth for ones that actually go through the book.
yep,
And these are inbound.
correct.
Yes.
Yep.
That's all killer data. We have so much to go on this, Dustin.
Yeah.
So you've given us so much good information.